Hi there, my name is Curtis, and I am going to make a video telling you how I cured myself of avoidant personality disorder. I had it all my life until I was about 24, 25 years old, and then I finally found out how to get rid of it. And I'm making this video for the subreddit, the AvPD subreddit mostly, because there's a lot of people on here. I just became aware that this subreddit exists, and there's a lot of people on here talking about how horrible their lives are because they can't fix this disorder. And I was fortunate enough that a few years ago, about 3.5 years ago or so, I was able to completely cure my avoidant personality disorder. So in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how I did it and how you can do it yourself. And the good news is that you don't need any money, you don't need any pills, you don't need any psychiatrist visits, you don't need any special training or anything weird like that, and you can do it all alone with nobody else around. I know that when you're avoidant, you don't really want to ask other people for help anyways, and the good news is you don't have to. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background and what my whole deal is, and then I'll get into the details. My name is Curtis, like I said. As a child, I had a pretty normal upbringing. It's the same story that a lot of people with disorders have. The physical upbringing was sufficient. My parents provided for me, but emotionally, the love just wasn't there. The connection wasn't there. There wasn't a very good relationship with my parents. And as a result of that, a couple different disorders developed in my mind. And specifically, once I reached about my late teens, early 20s, I eventually came to realize that I had three different disorders. I had bipolar mania, which was extraordinarily severe. I had the most severe form of it. I had suicidal depression, which was pretty severe, thinking about suicide all the time. And I had my avoidant anxiety, which sort of kept me from asking anyone for help with the other issues. So I suffered from these all through my teenage years, all through high school, all through college. Because of my issues, I wasn't really able to make many friends through those years. I had some friends, but not really, especially not in college because I was so stressed out with all my issues. And after college, I was too depressed to get a normal job, so I lived with my parents for a long time, and shit was just going bad. And eventually, I sort of lucked out, and I found a treatment for my bipolar mania. I found a supplement pill that gets rid of it, and I got rid of that. And then about a year later, I went to a psychiatrist. I finally admitted that I needed some help from someone else. Up until then, I'd been trying to do the whole self-help thing. I finally went to a psychiatrist that I need medication for my depression because it's very painful. And I was very fortunate that the first medication I tried worked for me and my depression went away. So I was 24 years old, and I had just recently got rid of my mania and my depression. But the problem was that I still had this avoidant personality disorder. And the psychiatrist had tried to give me medication for anxiety, but it didn't do anything. It didn't change my anxiety at all. So eventually, I'd been into self-help stuff for a long time. I realized, you know what? Maybe my anxiety is actually something totally psychological that you can't fix with medication and biology stuff. So I started looking around and realizing, okay, I'm gonna have to do something about this disorder. And I had a little hope because I'd gotten rid of my depression, gotten rid of my bipolar, but I still had this severe anxiety disorder. And finally, after finding the right self-help techniques, I was able to get rid of the anxiety, which was what created the disorder, and the disorder went away. And now I live a relatively normal life, at least socially, a normal social life. I'm not afraid of interacting with people. I'm not afraid of going to a room with lots of people who are going to be looking at me or whatever. So yeah, I went from having severe avoidant personality disorder, which in my case manifested as it was severe fear of being criticized, and it was totally automatic. I didn't choose to, worry about what people would think of me. It was just anytime I was going into a social situation, I automatically had terrible fear of what if someone criticized me. And so I would be terrified. And this applied to almost everybody. It applied to my parents, applied to my grandparents, my family, extended family. It applied to even old friends that I really cared about, that I had known for 10 years. Even that, when I would go and hang out with them, a lot of times I would get this, most of the time I would get this severe fear of what if they see something about me that they don't like and they criticize me, and it just felt terrifying. And a lot of times I would avoid going to social events that I was invited to because I was too scared. So that's sort of my background, my situation that I was in. So before I explain how I got rid of the avoidant personality disorder, I need to explain to you a little bit about my understanding of how it works so that you'll understand why the method works. So in spiritual traditions and in a lot of self-help traditions, there's this sort of thought process that is passed around a lot. And you'll hear this phrase over and over from tons of different people in different areas that are all into self-help and spirituality. They all say the same thing. They say there's only two emotions, love and fear, and every positive emotion is a form of love or an expression of love, and every negative emotion is a form of fear or expression of fear. So through my internal psychological work, I realized that this is sort of accurate, but not quite accurate. Actually, the more accurate statement is that there is no negative emotion. There is only internal love in various degrees and, frequencies or quantities or whatever. And every positive emotion is a form of self-love within your mind. And every negative emotion is not a thing that actually exists. It's actually just the absence of internal self-love and inner peace. Negative emotions are not a thing in your mind. They're actually just an absence of a thing. So the best analogy is the light analogy. When you turn on a light in a dark room, the room lights up because photons are shooting across the room. If you have one of those knobs that controls the brightness of the light and you turn it down, it's not getting darker in the room because there's some kind of darkness particle shooting through the room. It gets darker because there's less photons shooting through the room. So every degree of darkness is actually just a very low degree of light. And the mind works the same way with love and positive emotions and negative emotions. Happiness is a form of love. It's a certain degree of love. Self-confidence is a degree of love. And the greatest degree of love, I believe, is inner peace. When you have inner peace, nothing can faze you, Nothing can faze you when you have total self-love, which brings about inner peace. And negative emotions are not a thing in your mind that you need to get rid of. They're actually just an absence of love. So if you're angry, if you're feeling guilty, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling fearful, which is what avoidant personality disorder is all about, that is because there is a place in your mind that has an absence of self-love. And so if you imagine it kind of like your mind is a big field and you're walking through the field and there's a big hole in the ground, the hole in the ground is the absence of the ground. It's not a thing, it's actually an absence of a thing. Well, when you're looking through your mind and you find a place that's really painful, there's a lot of fear and anxiety, that's because there's an absence of self-love in that place in your mind. So that's sort of the background that we're going to be working with when we get rid of our avoidant personality disorder. And you also need to know about the conscious and the unconscious mind. So the vast majority of the mind is unconscious. That's because our conscious mind can only point at one little part of our minds at a time. So your unconscious mind is sort of like, I use the field metaphor, but it's sort of like a big warehouse that's pitch black, and there's all sorts of stuff in it, different beliefs, different thoughts, different emotions. But you're not aware of all that stuff until you get your little flashlight and you point it around and look around in it. So your conscious mind is like the little flashlight, and your unconscious mind is like the big dark warehouse with all the stuff in it, with all your beliefs and all your emotions, all your memories and things like that. So something like 99% of the mind is unconscious and 1% of the mind is conscious, or something like that. So in the case of avoidant personality disorder, the problem is that there's so many places in the unconscious that are filled with fear, or that have a large lack of self-love to a certain degree, which causes fear, that as you're looking around with your little flashlight through your mind throughout the day, you keep running into this fear. In fact, there's so much of it that you can't get away from it. You can't suppress it, can't psychologically suppress it or repress it enough, and it keeps coming up into your everyday life. And so that's the real issue with avoidant personality disorder. It's an overabundance of fear in your subconscious mind. There's so much fear that it's coming up and it's overflowing into your conscious mind. And fear, as I explained, is just a lack of self-love, a lack of inner peace. So instead of treating the symptoms of fear, which is, when someone invites me to hang out, my hands get sweaty and I get nervous and whatever. Instead of trying to deal with the physical level, you need to deal with the problem where it exists, which is in your subconscious mind, and it bubbles up to your conscious mind. So now that you know that fear is just a lack of self-love, the question is, how do we get rid of that fear? And the answer is, you fill it in your mind with self-love and inner peace. How do you do that? Well, it's actually so simple that people will hear it and they'll say, oh, that'll never work, and they won't even try it. Well, I implore you, please try it, because it worked for me. It got rid of the vast majority of my anxiety, and it got rid of my disorder. So all you do is you lay down on your bed. I prefer laying down on the bed. You can do this anywhere, but I prefer a comfortable, quiet place where I can lay down, which happens to be my bedroom that you can see behind me. And so you want to lay down while you're wide awake. You don't want to lay down while you're tired, otherwise you'll just fall asleep. You won't be able to concentrate. So lay down while you're wide awake, get comfortable, and what you're going to do is you're going to just become aware of the fear within you. And basically what happens is, as you sort of have the desire to let the fear come up into your conscious mind from the unconscious. So basically what you're doing is you're pointing the little flashlight of your consciousness at the part of your unconscious mind that has fear in it. So you want the fear to come up into your awareness, and when it does, you're going to lovingly and peacefully observe it. You're just going to become aware of the fear and choose to lovingly be at peace with it. Now, this sounds kind of weird, and you're probably going to think, well, I don't want to experience that fear, Usually what you're probably used to, what most people are used to, is when a negative emotion comes into our conscious mind, we don't know how to get rid of it, so we try to psychologically suppress it or repress it, whatever. We don't want to do that, because that just sticks it back into the subconscious mind and we'll run into it again later. We have to cure it. So you lay down, you become comfortable, you decide to become aware of your fear, become aware of your anxiety. And as you become aware of it, you don't do anything to it. This is the key. You do not try to suppress it. You do not try to push it out of your mind. You do not try to imagine loving thoughts or anything. You just witness it. And you'll become aware that you are not the fear. You are just the mental awareness that is able to experience the fear or to watch the fear. And in fact, you'll become aware that you're actually just watching the fear within you. And you will feel the fear. It will feel uncomfortable at first. However, as you watch it and as you lovingly choose to be at peace with the fear, something extraordinary will happen, which is that the place in your mind that has that fear will begin to fill up with the energy of peace and love that you are putting into it by choosing to lovingly be at peace with it. Now, while you're doing this, you don't want to say anything in a voice in your head like, I choose love and peace. You're not doing anything like that. You're just witnessing the fear within you, and you are not resisting it. You're letting it be there, and you're just watching it. And I promise, as you do this for, a few minutes, whatever, you'll notice that the fear begins to fade away. And when that happens, what's actually happening is your fear, the emptiness in your mind where love isn't, is being filled by the love and the peace that you are choosing to put in that place. And as you do this, it will go away. It will fill up with self-love. Now, in the case of people with avoidant personality disorder, we have a lot of anxiety. We have a lot of fear. And so you'll have to commit to this for, you can see benefits within the first minute. You can see that the fear begins to go away. However, as you allow the fear to fade away, you'll notice that more and more keeps coming up if you allow it to. And that's a good thing. That means that you're accessing deeper and deeper fear within your subconscious mind. And you just do this, for 20 minutes or something until a lot of the fear is gone. And you might have to do it over the course of a couple days. But this literally fills in the non-love in your mind, which is expressed as anxiety, with love and peace. You choose to just be aware of the fear within you and choose to lovingly be at peace with it. And as you choose love, that part of your mind will fill up with love and the fear will fade away. Now, briefly, there may be an uncomfortable feeling. The fear may get more intense when you first start. That means that you are accessing the severe fear within your subconscious mind. That's actually a good thing. And you just keep at it. You just keep at witnessing it peacefully. And eventually the fear will run out. It's almost like basically it's like a big pit in the ground. It's an emptiness where love isn't. And when you're witnessing it from a loving standpoint, not resisting it, not trying to do anything to it, what you're actually doing is you're filling that big pit in the ground up with the dirt. You're filling it up with love until it's all filled up and it's just, it's a normal psychological state of self-love. So my story is I discovered this technique and I used this technique. I was doing it a little differently back then. I was trying to get rid of the fear as I witnessed it instead of just lovingly witness it. But don't do that. Trying to get rid of it doesn't work. The key that is most effective is you just lovingly be at peace. You choose inner peace while witnessing the fear, and it will go away. And I did this when I think I started around the time I was turning 25, which was a few years ago. I did one serious session of this, and it abolished a huge chunk of my anxiety. And my life was like, oh my goodness, what happened? I'm not as nervous around people and stuff. And then about a month later, I realized I still had some anxiety left, and I did another really deep session where I experienced a lot of fear, and I filled it all with love, and it sort of all went away. And literally just 2 sessions, each session was maybe 20 minutes, and they were split up by a month because after the first one, I was experimenting with self-help techniques. I didn't know this would work. But after the first time, I came back about a month later, I did another one, and I got rid of my avoidant personality disorder. And really, avoidant personality disorder is just a specific behavioral expression of an overabundance of fear and anxiety within the subconscious mind, or in other words, an overabundance of lack of love within the subconscious mind. So you can call it fear or you can call it lack of love. It doesn't really matter. You understand how it works now. So just do that. It worked for me. And I really wanted to make this video because I don't see anyone talking about how to get rid of fear and anxiety like this anywhere online. I basically discovered this by combining different self-help techniques that I had learned about. I just wanted to share this, especially with the avoidant personality subreddit. I had severe avoidant personality disorder. It stopped me from making friends when I was in high school and college. It stopped me from going out when I would be invited to places. It made me terrified to even go into my own living room and see my own parents because I'd just be scared. What if they say something to me? What if they don't, whatever. It was horrible. And this one technique got rid of all of that anxiety, and the whole disorder vanished after 2 sessions, split up over the course of a month. And now I still experience fear like a normal person, and if I'm trying to succeed at something, there's fear of failure. If I'm trying to do something, there might be fear, oh, what does that person think of me? But it's normal levels of fear. It's not avoidant personality disorder levels of fear. And I know I can get rid of fear with this technique, and I still use it today. And theoretically, I think it should be able to get rid of any anxiety-based disorder. And yeah, because it's all they're all just different behavioral expressions of the same problem in the subconscious, which is an overabundance of fear or an underabundance of love, however you want to look at it. And I assume, this technique may also work for emotions that are negative other than fear. It probably works for grief and anger and things like that, but I didn't have any serious issues with other negative emotions, so I never tried it with those. I don't. Now that I've been working on my depression. I'm on meds for it right now, but I've been working on seeing if I can treat it with this. If I succeed at that, I might make another video. But until then, just use this method. Just lay down, be comfortable, lovingly be at peace with the fear within you. Just witness it and choose to be at peace with it. And your fear will be filled with self-love and inner peace, and it will eventually run out, and all of the emptiness within you where that fear is will be filled with self-love, and you will be cured. That's how I did it. I believe that's how you can do it. I would love if you leave some comments after you try this method. Tell me if it works for you. Tell me what you think. Thank you. Goodbye.